I'm going to call the meeting of the 4J Budget Committee to order. We are starting at 6:03, and I'll go ahead and call the roll. So Dakota Boulette, if you would just say here or present or whatever word you'd like to. Okay, Josh Bernstein.
I'm here.
Thank you. Gary Campbell.
Present.
Thanks. Tom DiLiberto.
Here.
Thanks. Ann Vinefield. And not here. Kirthi Hasida Kaufman. Is Kirthi here? Not yet. Alicia Hayes, present. Michelle Shu.
Here.
I know Gordon Lafer is not here, is excused. Judy Newman.
Present.
Laurel O'Rourke. Not here yet. Maya Rabasa is excused. Eric Richardson.
Here. Excuse me.
Thanks, Eric. And Erica Thiessen.
Present.
Thanks. So we do have a new group of budget committee members and some returning folks. So I'm hoping we could just start real quickly by going around now that we've called the roll, and introduce yourself and how long you've been on the budget committee would just be a good way to start. So I'm just going to go ahead and start at the top with Dakota.
Well, my name is Dakota. I've been on the budget committee for about 2 years now.
2 years? Great. Josh?
Hey, I am Josh Bernstein. I have been on since 2014.
And you've been chair for the last three cycles?
I've been chair 3 times. I think the last two, last year, and I think 2 years before that for 2 years. When the pandemic hit, that was not fun.
Everything pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Okay, great. Thank you. And did Gary join us? Gary, there you are. So Gary is here. And Gary, just how long you've been on the budget committee?
Yeah, this is my 3rd year serving on the committee, and I apologize, I'm having camera issues, so hopefully I'll eventually be able to show my face here.
Great, thank you. Tom, how about you?
Tom DiLiberto. This is my 2nd year on the budget committee.
Great, welcome. And is Ann here?
She joined.
Yes, I am here.
Ann, hey.
Sorry to be late. Zoom was
no
not
worries.
properly installed on my computer, so I managed to make it work on my little phone. I think this is my 3rd year on the committee.
Great, thanks, Ann. And Kirthi, did Kirthi make it in? I don't see Kirthi. Okay. This is my 17th actually. My 16th year, anyway, 17th budget cycle. Michelle, where's Michelle? How about you?
First.
So exciting. And Gordon is Judy.
I think this is my 5th.
Okay. Laurel, did Laurel make it yet? No? All right, Maya's not here. Eric.
Hi, Eric Richardson. Of course, this is my first meeting. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Eric. And Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica, and this is my 2nd year, and I just want to say welcome to the new folks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See, we were promised no math, yet you had to figure out how long you've been on the budget committee. That was a tough one. So I want to turn it over to our superintendent, Andy Dye, Superintendent Dye, if you want to go ahead and take over and with your welcome. Thanks.
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Dye, and I am your friendly neighborhood superintendent. I'd like the opportunity to introduce staff, but there are some new faces and some faces you might also recall. But wanted to start by just taking a few minutes to thank you for your time on the budget committee. It's a lot of time and a lot of thought, and that's important because it's an extremely critical part of our planning process for the next several years. We're not all about money. We don't make profit, but we can't do what we do unless we have responsible stewardship of our dollars and we make some really difficult decisions. And everybody here will be a part of providing sound advice to members of the board who ultimately approve the budget. And so I just can't overstate my appreciation for your time to kids and families in the community as a whole. I'd like to introduce some folks, and I'm sure that everyone is rearranged differently on your screens than you are on mine. So Bob, would you mind introducing yourself and talking about your role within the district?
Sure. So this is my 7th budget cycle. Kind of hard to believe I've been with the district this long. I just recently took the position of Associate Director of Financial Services, and I'm looking forward to working alongside our new Director of Financial Services, who you'll meet in a moment. But I do recognize some of the faces here, and look forward to working with you all throughout this budget cycle.
It's a great segue into hearing from Matt Brown.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the new Director of Financial Services. I started with the district back in September and have been with municipal governments for the past 12 years. Before that, I did spend about 2 or 3 years with Northwest Regional Educational Service District before that.
Thank you. Kalina? She's either doing a very good job at staying still or is frozen. There we go. Hi, Kalina.
Hi, how's everybody? I'm Kalina Beard. I am the new Chief Administrative Officer. I've been with the district since November of last year. So a few newbies here. This will be my first budget cycle. I come to 4J from the public transportation sector. Most recently from Lane Transit District, where I was their director of business services, but probably about 17 years, I'd say almost 18 in the public transportation sector. Thank you for having me tonight.
And while their faces aren't showing, I think it's important to give them a chance to introduce themselves because both Lisa and Jenna will be at all of our meetings. If you have camera issues, I understand, and if not, show your lovely faces. But Jenna, do you mind introducing yourself?
Certainly. Good evening, everybody. I am Jen McCulley. I'm the Director of Communications and Intergovernmental Relations here at the school district, and I joined, I'm one of the new kids as well. I joined in the end of August, beginning of September, and I look forward to helping explain how you guys do your work to our community so that we can add some clarity to how we budget.
Thank you. And Miss Lisa?
Hi, folks. I know most of you, what would this be, my 9th budget cycle? Perhaps. It's good to see familiar faces, our new faces. You'll find them to be incredible people. I think you'll enjoy working with them, and I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I believe we don't have any new participants since you handed it off to me, Alicia. So at this point, I would go into items for action at this meeting. And Josh, you're at this point, you're the
I think I take over from here, Andy.
Oh, my apologies, Alicia.
No,
I'll go on mute.
You should know by now I have control issues. I've explained that enough.
Fair enough.
It is time for me to lose control, and we are going to actually move. It's an action item to elect a chair and vice chair. I am going to suggest and move forward unless I have huge complaints of doing this separately. So we will nominate, second, and discuss if there is discussion for chair, and then we will do the same for vice chair, if that is okay with everyone. Not
Alicia,
hearing
I
any.
think Josh has his hand up.
Josh.
Sorry, I was actually, if now is the right time, I actually would like to nominate someone for chair, not myself.
You're a smart man, Josh.
Sorry, I'm too
now-
eager. I should
now
have put my
is
hand up
ex-
too soon, maybe.
It's exactly the time. And if
Thank
anybody,
you.
because I only have 12 people, so when we go ahead and do the vote, Judy, do you have everybody on your screen or is it just me? Great. Then I am going to ask Judy to do the count, if that's okay, when we vote. Okay, Judy, you good with that? And then I'll be done and we won't have to worry about me anymore. All right, Josh, please go ahead.
Thanks, Alicia. I would like to nominate Gary Campbell to be chair for us this year.
And I always give the person the opportunity after it's seconded, and I see Judy's hand as a second. So Josh has moved and Judy has seconded. Gary, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept. I wish I could be showing you guys how nervous I'm about accepting that, but I will accept that.
Okay, good. Are there any more nominations for chair of the 4J Budget Committee? I don't see any more. Judy, do you see any more?
No,
I'm going to go ahead and close nominations. Are there any discussion on this motion? I don't see any. Do you see any, Judy? Do you like to?
I'll tell you
Okay.
if I do, I promise.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Josh, seconded by Judy for Gary Campbell to be chair. I'd like everybody to vote in the positive, affirmative. Everybody agrees. Please signify by saying aye. And if your vision, can you raise your hand? Aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
I can read them off for the record. We have Erica, Gary, Josh, Tom, I think Dakota. Yep, see her hand. Alicia, Eric, Michelle, Anne, and myself, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. So it's been moved and seconded and voted an affirmative, a positive, that Gary be the chair. Gary, are you okay if I finish up with vice chair and then turn it over to you?
Yes, please do, Alicia.
Okay, because we got this like humming like a machine now.
Gary,
right. Judy?
Can I just congratulate Gary? I'm really delighted. I should have said that during the discussion. He's a great choice and thank you for being willing to serve.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Judy. I see
Appreciate
other
it.
people doing the same congratulations. I'm not sure, are you dancing, Josh, or are you just really happy? Just kidding.
I was just
Thanks,
raising
Gary.
my hand again.
Josh,
I'm
I'm going to
jumping
go
ahead.
ahead and call on you as we move to vice chair.
I just want to say thank you, Gary, for accepting that. And I enjoyed working with you in the last few years, and I'm glad you'll take on this role. And now I would also like to nominate for vice chair Dakota Boulette. And I'd also like to say I enjoyed serving with you in our time, and hopefully you would accept. And well, I'll nominate you. That's I think what I can do, and I think needs a second.
Great. It's been moved by Josh for Dakota to be vice chair. Do I have a second?
I second.
Is that Erica?
Er-
Thank you, Erica. It's been moved by Josh and seconded by Erica. And Dakota, do you accept that nomination?
I do accept the nomination.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I will move forward with the vote. All in favor of Dakota being vice chair, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay, I'm
And
gonna-
Judy, keep them up
Tom.
while Judy does the roll.
Thank you. I got Tom first, Gary, Josh, Erica, Dakota, Alicia, myself, Judy, Eric, Michelle, and Anne. And Gary, you keep hopping around. I did say your name, I think. So yes.
Yeah.
I think we got everyone.
All right, it is unanimous. Dakota is the vice chair. So congratulations. Gary, are you okay running the meeting from now with your limited access?
Yeah, I
Or
think
would you-
so. I mean, I can see everybody else, so that makes it useful.
Okay. Well,
And again,
thank-
I apologize for the issue.
No, I don't have a gavel to hand to you, but it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Thanks.
Alicia. Thank you for kicking us off today. Thank you, Andy, for your words to start us off. And thanks, Dakota, for being willing to serve as vice chair as well. I hope that you guys will be gracious in helping me through as I meander through this leadership role. So please give me some grace. I think looking at the agenda going forward, the first item is to take a look at the schedule of meetings for our time together this year. Those are within the agenda. So we have January today, we have February, March, April, May, and June. Do I hear any motions about moving that agenda schedule forward? Matt, you have a hand up there?
Yeah, I did want to mention, just for the budget committee's knowledge, as we get going in the fiscal year or the budget year, when these calendar dates were set, they were before we started looking at our internal calendar and getting things set up. I just want to kind of earmark February 27th. We have our budgets that are going to go out to department heads and schools and level directors around the 5th to the 15th in February. They will be due back to financial services between the 15th and 25th, which means we will not have a lot of time to prepare any actual hard budget numbers for that 27th meeting. Now, I'm happy to meet and discuss if there are additional topics that the committee would like to talk about during that time. So I'm happy to have that meeting. I just want to set the expectation that we will not have any hard budget numbers to discuss in time for that February 27th meeting, because we also have to notice that meeting of what we're going to be talking about.
Okay, thank you, Matt, for those comments. Do you have a timeline? Do you think once you get that information back from your department folks, when you might be able to have that information ready for us to discuss?
The earliest I would anticipate would be the probably late beginning in March. Like I said, we'll be getting budgets back from departments between the 15th and 25th of February. So that would allow myself and Bob to start working through those budgets and entering some hard numbers. And then it's really working with Dr. Dye and the executive team over what those budget numbers mean, and if any internal discussions need to happen so that we're proposing to you a balanced budget.
So looking at the schedule, so that if we didn't have that discussion until later in March, we've got the other scheduled meeting for the 20th. Is there any chance that we could have the discussion before the 20th, or is that by the 20th you think would be the most reasonable date for us to get to that type of discussion?
I'm looking at my calendar right now. Off the top of my head, I would feel comfortable saying anytime the week of March 13th, we could potentially have a meeting. That's about a week before the 20th. I would like to at least have a couple weeks for myself and Bob to get everything entered. And then typically, and this is just my experience from budgets, typically we get requests above and beyond what our resources are. And so I want to have time to have those discussions internally with Dr. Dye and the executive team to ensure that we're proposing a balanced budget to you as the budget committee.
Thanks, Matt. And I see Judy, Alicia, and Josh. Let's start with Judy.
Well, I just had a suggestion that maybe we would just keep one of the meetings in March, whether it's the 13th or the 20th, and make it a bit longer meeting so we could do all our business. Either that or we'd be meeting 2 weeks in a row because then we bump up against spring break. So that might do it for us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Alicia?
So I was going to propose the same thing. Some of us are new, we have new staff, and we aren't sure how this is all going to go. And we can always add meetings. So when you're looking for a motion, I would move that we accept the proposed calendar except for Monday, February 27th, as is, with the understanding that we can add if we need additional meetings, but not meet. And our next meeting would then be March 20th. Just when you're ready to accept motions, that's what mine would be.
Thank you. And I'll have those go forward after I hear from Josh real quick.
I kind of agree with both comments that were just said, but I guess the motion's on the floor. So do we have to wait for, no, you didn't make a motion yet. I'm sorry. I was going to say one thing I might suggest is if we do end up canceling that February 27 meeting, keeping that March 20, is that if we feel like we want to build in another one later between March 20 and June 5, just to have it on the calendar, we could, just so the number, I mean, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 meetings on this kind of proposed schedule already. And I think we did a lot more last year than we had in previous years. I think it was a lot. I thought at times it was productive though. At times it was a little bit, felt like we met a lot, but I kind of want to gauge people's sense of, do we want to add something now if we take away February 27, or just kind of leave it as Alicia said, maybe that if we need to, we could always add it later. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. And I see Laurel.
Yes, I also go along with what Alicia said about adding meetings as needed, because I foresee that probably being needed, since we will be getting a lot of information later rather than sooner, which is understandable. I would like to amend the motion that's not on the table to say that we will have to add to the agenda that we'll have a discussion at that meeting on March about what calendar changes if necessary, because we're all busy people and we would need to know what's coming down the pike, right?
Thank you. All right. With that, Alicia, would you be interested in making a motion?
I would, but can I ask a quick clarifying question first, which is I would look at Matt and say, with staff, or I don't know if I'm looking at Matt or whomever could answer this question for me, would it be more helpful for staff to pick a date like April 10th or another date, or would it be easier just to deal with that on the 20th of March when we meet next to see what we need? Do you have a sense? It's okay if you don't, because this is brand new to you.
Can you, I guess I didn't quite understand what you're asking.
I'm just asking, so my motion would be that we accept the proposed calendar dates except for February 27th, and that we understand that on the 20th of March, we may be adding dates. Is that the best way to go for your staff? Or is it easier to say these are the dates we will be adding?
That's very amendable to me. I would just want to make sure that's okay with Dr. Dye and Kalina.
I have no problem with that. Kalina, do you foresee any challenges associated with that?
I don't.
Great.
Thank you,
Then I'm
Matt.
going to go ahead and move, if that's okay, Gary,
Yeah,
that
please.
we accept the proposed dates minus the February 27th, with the understanding that at the March 20th date, we will look, there is a potential for adding additional dates when we meet on March 20th. That is my motion.
Thank you, Alicia. Do I have a second? I see
I'll
Laurel.
second.
All right, any discussion further? Seeing none.
Can I just,
Oh, sorry, Laurel, go ahead.
the only discussion I'd add further is for people maybe to have some dates ready at that meeting or ahead of time, so we can get to the needed, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
sorry, I just came back from driving for 2 hours. So yeah, just have some dates set aside and ready so we can move quickly on it. Thanks.
Thanks, Laurel. And this is, I'm sure it's frustrating for you guys not to be able to see me, but I'm like nodding my head in agreement with you folks. Yeah, I can't show my approval very easily. Great, thanks, Laurel. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the motion with the date set minus the February date, and with us being open to adding new dates. I see Alicia's hand, Tom's hand, Josh, Michelle, Eric, Erica, Judy, Dakota, and great. Anybody opposed to the motion? Seeing no disagreement there. All right, so the motion passes. So we'll strike that February date from our calendars. You guys have that extra evening. And then we'll discuss at the March 20th meeting about additional dates as needed. And we will get those on the calendar. Thank you very much for that discussion, for that thought. Appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is items raised by the audience. Lisa or other staff, do we have?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have one person who has signed up, Sabrina Gordon from EEA, and she has been invited in and should be opening her camera and microphone shortly.
Thank you. Welcome, Sabrina. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and make your comments.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Gordon. I am the president of Eugene Education Association, representing all the licensed staff in both the 4J and the Bethel School District. I'm just here tonight to thank this committee for the work that you are about to begin. It's very important work. And last year, educators really appreciated the questions and discussion that this committee had. It was very thoughtful, and your questions and ideas really often lead to positive changes for our students. And one example of that happened last year was the conversation that this group had about the importance of teacher librarians for our students. Those conversations led to budget changes that put 3 teacher librarians in 3 of our elementary schools for this year. It's really exciting to see our district prioritize an impactful resource such as teacher librarians. And it's important to note that that came from a discussion that started from the budget committee. So I just want to encourage you to keep asking questions and make time and space for thoughtful discussions, and know that educators and students really appreciate the work that you do. Thank you.
Very much, Sabrina. And Lisa, really quick, would you mind just making a couple comments about how public can stay engaged if they would like to come and present on public comment? I know there's instructions on the website.
Yes, they can sign up electronically. There's information on the district website, and we hold space at all budget committee meetings for up to 10 speakers, 30 minutes. So they each get 3 minutes, and we invite folks to sign up by noon on the Monday of the day of the meeting so that we can make sure we get everybody lined up and they have the information to log in. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is items for information. And so we're stepping into more of the actual budget information. Matt, thank you for being here to talk about our funding situation and general budget process. So Matt, I'll hand it over to you. If you've got a slide deck to share, you're welcome to share that.
All right, thank you very much. So you should see the presentation that was in your packet. I do also want to mention before I get started to please do not hesitate to interrupt me and ask questions. I do not intend to talk the entire time and hope that we have a little bit of a dialogue. So please do not hesitate if any questions come up. On the agenda tonight are a few main areas that we're going to talk about. I'll give you some simple synopsis of some economic updates that we've received from the state of Oregon, as well as we'll talk about the budget committees, the what, why, hows, roles and responsibilities, since we do have some newer members. And then we'll talk about the budget a little bit, how it's broken out, and talk about some state school funding and forecasts that we have, and kind of cover a wide breadth of information tonight. So don't hesitate if you have any questions. So for our general economic update, we wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what at least the state of Oregon is looking at in the future. So in early 2023, as we get started in this year, our economists of the state of Oregon are expecting kind of a mild recession. They expect that recession to hit at around the summertime of 2023. You can see on the picture on the top left, that is a comparison of the Oregon recessions from previous years and what is expected in the dark blue of 2023 to give you an idea of how long they anticipate the recession to happen and how fast we will get out of it. Over on the right-hand side, you can see an estimate of the consumer price indexes. As many of you are aware, we've seen some really abnormally high prices in many of our services and professional services and purchases that we've done for the school district, as well as probably in your personal lives. The state of Oregon does anticipate those CPIs to come back down and return to a more normal range compared to where we have been over the last year or so. And another thing to note is the Oregon budgetary reserves that you've seen or that you see in the bar graph on the bottom. And what this is an anticipation of is the state of Oregon really having unprecedented fund balances over the course of the last couple of years and bienniums. So that's led to a lot of potentially more funding for education and other services within the state. But you can see that in 2020, in 23-25, they do anticipate those balances being used up for those needs that arise. So an unprecedented has allowed us to give people more spending habits through the state of Oregon. And Josh, I'm sorry, I see you have your hand raised.
Would you want questions along the way or wait for the end? What works best for you?
You're happy to chime in.
Oh, okay, just a quick question, which is what you just said about the last couple of years. A lot of that I would think was one-time money, either from the feds or because of the pandemic. And I'm just wondering how that plays out either in this slide or just sort of more generally as you and other staff prepare the budget this year and for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Correct. So more specifically, obviously the district has received a lot of federal funding. Most predominantly that usually refers to ESSER funds. Those are funds that have been received over the last couple of years. They are expected and anticipated to end at the end of 23-24. And so what we're doing as a district right now with Dr. Dye and all of the executive leaders is looking at those ESSER spendings and seeing what did we spend on and what's ongoing expenses that we need to start planning for. So we're not getting to that 23-24 year and then making a decision. We're taking a look at those in this current fiscal year and planning for the future. That way we don't hopefully have any difficult discussions in 23-24. If there's no other questions about kind of the general economic update, if anybody at the board wishes, hi, Gary, I'm sorry, you had a question.
Oh, no, just to clarify, the discussions would be had, it'd be next year in the 23 cycle when we'd be meeting as a budget committee next year for the 23-24 school year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There are some links and PDFs that I can send out if you would like. You're not really, you don't have to read them, but they're kind of a executive brief and kind of economic forecast overview. If you're into that sort of thing, I can send those out for you to read at your leisure. They come from the Oregon economists. So I will make sure to have those available for you. So essentially, what is a budget? It's basically a financial plan or a roadmap that we put together to that is based on one fiscal year. And for those of you who don't know, our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. Our financial plan is basically a good faith estimate of our revenues and expenditures. And what you do as a budget committee is you authorize the authority for the public to spend money. The document is a public document. I wanted to keep you in mind of some key process steps. And so for the budget process, we have three main steps. We create a proposed budget, an approved budget, and an adopted budget. The proposed budget is done by staff. In my history, I've always presented a balanced budget to a budget committee. And then once the budget committee approves it, it becomes an approved budget. And then once it's approved by the board, it is an actually officially adopted budget, which is giving us the spending authority for the new fiscal year. So the budget committee consists of an equal number of the governing body and the appointed electors. All the budget committee members are registered voters within the district. You cannot be officers, agents, or employees of the districts. You all serve staggered 3-year terms. Some of you have served multiple terms, which you are more than welcome to. And every budget person, every budget committee member has the same authority. Unfortunately, though, this is one of the commissions that must serve without any compensation. So what is your job as a budget committee? Your job as a budget committee is essentially, in an essence, to answer one question. Does the budget that's been presented to you meet the goals of the district? You have to officially hear the budget message from the superintendent, who will deliver that in a future meeting. You consider any kind of public comment that you receive at any of the meetings. You discuss if the budget needs to be revised in any matter. And then you ultimately approve the budget and approve the property tax rates. So what happens if you don't do this, and why do you do it? The reason that we do it is because the government says we have to. So the government outlines the programs, the fiscal policies, any required estimates of how we report resources and requirements. They actively encourage citizen involvement, and it helps control the spending of public funds. So if we don't do this process, if you don't officially create a budget committee and approve a document, this actually stops us as a district from spending any money starting on July 1st. So how do we do this? We start by having public meetings like the one tonight. You elect a presiding officer, chair and vice chair, like has been done. And I've outlined a couple meetings in the future of what we would talk about at those future meetings. So obviously tonight, January 30th, we're going over training roles and the forecasting. My anticipation when putting this presentation together was that at the March meeting, we would be going over the debt service funds, capital projects, and insurance funds. In the April meeting, we would go under special revenues, which would be mainly grants. And then in May, we would go over the general fund and talk about approving the proposed budget and taxes. That is a rough timeline of what I've created for the future meetings. They can definitely be adjusted by the budget committee as you wish and as topics come up. So just a reminder about the board beliefs and values. This goes back to that question of, does our budget, Laurel, you have a question.
Yeah, and forgive me if I missed it, but the other part, and maybe it's coming later, but when I saw the, like the general, yeah, the meeting outlines.
Correct.
There's discussion and time in there for everybody to bring what they want. And I think it's really good to talk about that as well, because otherwise it's just what I know you're saying, this is what I'm bringing to you. You guys will have your own things. But since we have so many new people or some new people, I just like people to know that their voice is important here. And there's always time to bring the things that concern you.
Correct. So I definitely want to reinforce that at every meeting, there's always a public opportunity to speak, as well as the budget or budget members that have questions and things that they can bring to the table as well. Judy, I see you had your hand raised.
Yeah, just a question. I like the way you outline what a budget committee does. And I think the main question that the budget committee you highlighted here is that does the budget committee meet the district goals? And so I just think it would be important at one meeting, more meetings, all meetings, to make sure everyone is understanding what the district's goals are. We're all have that common understanding, since I think that is really our guiding, should be our guiding principles. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Josh.
Just one question on that slide that you still have up there.
Yes.
March 30, that should be March 20, right? We just had a
Correct.
motion. Okay.
Yep.
And then just looking at the calendar. Oh, and then we have a June 5th meeting with that. And that says if only if needed on our as we voted it. But I'm just wondering, is the approval is the in May 15 there is listed as that's when we make our recommendation to the board.
It's
Correct.
a tentative date depending on when you as the budget committee finalize what you feel is an appropriate budget. So
And if-
these are put in as a rough guideline for you
Got it.
as what I'm anticipating that I will bring you in the meetings. But just like Laurel said, each of you as budget members will have your own little things that you want to talk about and discuss to help enforce how the budget gets done.
And one quick question on that. We did vote for June 5th as an only if needed meeting, but let's just say May 15, our discussion leads to a need for a June 5th meeting. Is that still enough time before the board, for public notice for the board to vote before the end of the year is required by the law? I'm assuming it is, but I just want to make sure I remember.
Yes.
That we have, there's a process, there's a chronology, right?
I'm sure Lisa will correct me, but I believe the ORS statute is 5 to 30 days that we have to notice a public meeting. Laurel.
Yes, so thanks, Josh, because it makes me, when I see the general fund approval of proposed budget, are we just on that day getting the rest of the budget proposals from the district? Because that's what it reads like to me, or am I misunderstanding?
My intention was that the packet that you will receive before those meetings and before the March meeting would contain the entire budget. My intention is to focus on the specific areas of, say on March, we would focus on debt, capital projects, and the insurance funds.
So my only concern with that is that if we don't talk about general fund until the May 15th, and there are proposed changes, then we're kind of setting ourselves up a little bit. I'm wondering if we could move the general fund to with special revenue and focus on, any changes that we're at because there's going to be things asked for that the district will need to work on, and then we save the beginning of the meeting on the 15th for that. That's just an idea, because this is not, as you probably have heard, a rubber stamp committee. We were really interested and I'm interested in really funding important things at a high level. So I really want to make sure there's time, and I don't like to set staff up because I've been staffed before and I hate being set up.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm obviously very amenable to whatever the budget committee would like to do. The reason that it was outlined how it is on the presentation is to allow that potential of a June meeting if there is a ongoing discussion in the general fund, because that's obviously your biggest fund. That's where all of your main operations are. So I anticipate that to be a long discussion. And a majority of that evening. That's why I focused one evening just on the general fund by itself. But you're more than welcome as the budget committee to kind of earmark April or March for the general fund, however you see is the best use of our time. Gary?
I just wanted to second that Laura's idea about getting that general fund discussion further up in our agendas in order to have that discussion like you're just saying. And however that fits better, you know, with the part of the special revenue, or if that can go up to March. I think that is where we have the bulk of our discussion, is once we get that information about, you know, funding levels, and after we've heard from you guys a little bit about what your thoughts are about programming and staff. So I definitely support that idea.
Yeah, I'd be happy to move that. It sounds like we have a couple people interested in moving the general fund discussion up to the April meeting. If that works for everyone. I see many thumbs up and noddings of heads. I don't see anybody clamoring with disapproval. Okay, I will go ahead and mark that on my adjustment in Bob's calendar to make sure that we get that ready for you for the April meeting. And thank you very much for the discussion. So to continue moving forward, to give everybody kind of a 30,000 foot level of our fund structure and how we do things financially at the district. All of our funds are categorized into 6 main categories. So the general fund is our Fund 100. That's the one where obviously a majority of our operations are. 200s are called our special revenue funds. Those are mainly our grant funds. So ESSER, SIA, High School Success, as well as nutrition services are housed in our 200s and our special revenue funds. Our 300s are our debt services and our debt service payments. 400s are all of our capital projects, so our bonds. Our 600s are insurance reserves. So we have a general insurance reserve, and then we have an insurance reserve for each union classified, licensed, and items like that. And then we have our last fund of 780, which is our private purpose fund. So that's how we formulate our structure of our funds. And that's how I've kind of formulated these upcoming meetings to focus on each of these structures independently. So with that, we'll go into a little bit of the overall enrollment. I want to invite also Bob Blythe to speak as well as he would like. Him and myself, as well as Oscar from our instructions area, helped put some of the enrollment numbers together and the estimates that we received from Oscar over in that department. So overall, our projections for enrollment are going down. As you can see in the graph, the average is that red bar going down. Bob, was there anything specific that you wanted to mention specifically about our enrollment numbers?
I mean, there's nothing specific about our enrollment numbers. I mean, Oscar's the one really who's looking at all of the factors that go into what we can expect out into the future. One thing that I can share with the group is that I am looking at enrollment numbers across the state because that is an important indicator of what the entire pie will be. As if the entire pie within the state shrinks at the same rate as ours, then we'll basically be held at the same place as a percentage of the total state school fund. And right now, what we're seeing is that a lot of other districts are also looking at lowering enrollment out into the future years. So the ultimate driver of that, Oscar would have a better sense of, but that is what I am seeing in my discussions with other districts, other large districts around the state.
Josh, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. Hi, thank you again, Matt. Quick question, and I know you may get to this in the next slides with the ADMW and how what that means for numbers, but I'm just curious, do these numbers include charter schools, students in charter schools? And if not, what's the numbers of kids in charter schools? Because I know we get a lot less, we get some, but a lot less for that, right?
Correct. These numbers that you're seeing on this chart and this next one, which is the extended ADMW, do not include the charter schools. And so those charter schools are seeing somewhat similar results than we are. And I do want to note that because I do remember Oscar specifically mentioning this was a topic a number of years ago at the state of Oregon and through many of his colleagues about the birth rate in the state of Oregon and nationally being down. And this is a direct effect of that, because when those discussions were had and it became a little bit more national news of the birth rate going down, this is where that effect comes, where we start to see those enrollment numbers falling.
If I may follow up, so if we're looking at like the current fiscal year, we estimate about 15,681. Do you know a number, or could you bring it back to us in the future of the number of charter school students?
Absolutely.
That sort of helps us figure out, because I know, and maybe also description, and I can't remember the exact percentage, but we as 4J get X, but we only get 0.2 or 0.4, some percentage of it, right, for those students.
Correct. And we do receive updates about the enrollment for our charter schools through our quarterly and audit reports that we receive. Oscar, I don't believe necessarily specifically tracks charter schools, but that is information that we have, and happy to share that with the group. Laurel.
Yeah, just a quick thing. And could we also get the numbers for the kids that are being homeschooled?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, I know that was a little bit of why an increase is expected in fiscal year 2024. You see this little kind of jump. Initially, in our previous projected enrollment, we had this number a little bit higher, and that is because we anticipated homeschool kids coming back to school after COVID, and those did not return at the numbers that were anticipated. So it came in lower than anticipated. So this little bump right here that we're seeing in these fiscal years is that potential bump that we're anticipating that Oscar is going to see in enrollment of those homeschool kids coming back into the system. Tom.
Yeah, my question is, I'm echoing Laurel to a certain extent. I'd really like to see this parsing out of are there populations in our district that we're not seeing here? Maybe there are things that we haven't asked for yet, but I'm very interested in that. And did you say that Oscar was going to meet with us at a later date to talk about causes of the enrollment going down?
I do not have Oscar on the discussion right now.
Okay.
I'm happy to invite him to see if he has an available time at a future meeting that he can come back and we can touch base on the enrollment, if that's okay with the budget committee, just to ensure that I'm not speaking out of turn or saying something wrong.
Sure, that makes sense. Thanks.
Josh?
Sorry to raise my hand again, but what Tom just said made me think of another population of students. I just want to know where they're represented, which is Eugene Online Academy. As a 4J online school, we do get, am I right, funding for that from the state, but is the funding different? And also how many kids are in that? And if it matters to the funding, how many are in the 4J catchment versus other areas? So that's all information, not for right now, but if you could help us kind of figure that out too.
No,
Thanks
I'm
so much.
happy to gather the information and meet with Oscar over the next couple of days. And I'm sure Bob and I can get something together to send out to the group. And then we can invite Oscar to come to a future meeting and answer your questions directly if they're not answered with the information that Bob and I can provide. Any other questions? Okay. So the last slide is our financial forecast for the next 5 years. I know the board has seen this, so this won't be any surprise to you, but to give you the overall 30,000 foot level, red is expenses, green is revenue. The purple bars are the ending fund balance for each year. And that yellow line near the bottom is the district policy for reserves, which is currently set at 5%. So as you can see at the estimated year end, we are anticipating a pretty large sizable balance of $66 million. That is mainly attributed to a combination of vacancies that we have in the district, both licensed and classified, as well as a combination of expenses that were not spent from the general fund but taken from other resources like ESSER and other grant funds that were able to be used instead of general fund dollars. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And also I do want to state as well that this forecast right here that you're looking at is based on a state school fund of the next biennium being at 9.7 billion. Gary, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's just a simple thing that I'm not grasping, but so you have revenue going up in the future despite the enrollment rates going down. If you could just speak to that real quick.
That is a combination of percentage increases of property taxes and your local option levy continuing. So we budget or forecast the property taxes roughly 3 to 3.5% of an increase each year. And then your local option levy, just under that 2.5 to 3% is usually what I've chosen as a forecast based on the previous years for growth. And as Bob mentioned as well, assuming that everybody in the state, as far as the larger school districts, follows our enrollment, our size of the pie kind of stays the same. And I'm not sure if Bob wants to add anything into that.
Sure. You know, the further out you look into a forecast, obviously, the less sure of things you can be. And even now we're at that point where, you know, Matt mentioned that we're using 9.7 billion as our current guess. I will say it is a guess because right now this is something that's in the legislature, and the governor will have her budget that'll have an amount for the state school fund, and then the legislature will have their number. They will do their discussions and their bargaining to come up with the final number. And you know, right now, the current biennium, it's right around 9.3 billion that they put aside for the state school fund. There is the anticipation, even with the assumed recession, that could potentially hit the state of Oregon, that they would still be able to increase the state school fund amount. But again, we won't know what that final number is until the end. And when you're looking out into the future years, you're also hitting another biennium and another legislative discussion. And so we make assumptions on that too. And it's all based on the best knowledge that we have at the moment. But there is still the assumption that slowly over time, the economy will continue to grow, and therefore the state school funds percentage of the state budget will continue to grow. And so you will see revenues increasing. And again, as long as our enrollment tracks with the state's enrollment numbers overall, we would see that we would continue to see increased revenues over time.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the 5-year forecast? Okay. Oh, Judy.
Oh, so I guess I'm really interested in seeing our red and green lines coming together. And will we have some plans that we'll see in the budget? Because we can't obviously sustain spending more than we're getting. And yeah, I'm hoping 9.6, but I mean 9.7 comes through. There's a lot to happen. I'm not necessarily 100% sure of that one either. So.
Correct. And as Bob mentioned, the further you go out in a forecast, obviously, the less reliable it is. So these forecasts and those revenues are directly attributed to union contracts that we have received and worked through. So we have contract language roughly through 24, 25 for most of our contracts. And then that 26, 27 year can get a little bit fuzzier as we step away from what our current union contracts outline. So we're using our best guess onto those expenses of what those increases and COLA increases are going to be based on the best knowledge that we have right now. So yes, we would love to see those lines kind of come a little bit closer, but how we do that is a lot of discussions between board members, executive board members, Dr. Dye, in the direction of the district.
So just to follow up with that, so the 9.7, I think somewhere in the presentation, did you mention this was based on a 4.3 roll up like CSL? Is that what the 9.7 is? Because the current CSL recommended by the Department of Administrative Services is 2.4. So we have a ways to go. Okay.
Josh.
Thank you. Unless, Andy, if you're going to say something in response, okay. I have a quick comment and two quick questions. It'll be real fast. The quick comment is, I heard on the radio the other day that there's talk, someone is trying to get 10.7 instead of 9.7. So to the extent, if I can just say, all of us who care about public education, we are people in the state where we can try to influence our legislators. Legally, of course. Second, I have two quick questions. One is on the, of course, I just forgot. Oh, the local option levy. Could you remind us when that is up for election? And then the second question is, you mentioned the 5% for the reserves. I think that's a legal amount by law, but have we been higher than that in the past? And is that sort of best practice? Where does that go? So a lot of stuff, but those two questions, if you could.
Correct. So the local option levy is up in a couple years. The district does have the opportunity, if they want to go out a year early and go out for that, that would be up to the board to decide if they want to do that. Otherwise, it would be coming up in the next year to go out for that local option levy. And that local option levy is roughly about $22 million. It is a pretty sizable chunk of the general fund revenue that we count on every year. And then your other question.
About the 5% reserves.
Correct. Okay, so the 5% is a current district policy that you have. It is a best practice from my experience to look at anywhere from a 5 to 15% policy. However, we have not had that discussion, or I and Dr. Dye have not had that discussion with the board at this time. It was something that was brought up by the board at this last meeting to talk about those financial policies. It is on the docket to do this next fiscal year, just not something that we've been able to do this fiscal year. Dr. Dye.
Thanks. Josh, the levy ends right now on the 5 and 0 years. And so our levy is through 2025 and then would, I'll speak optimistically, when passed, come up again 2030. And the district has some choices as to when we put it out on the ballot. And then Matt, I wondered if you might talk a bit about some of the assumptions that are embedded in the expenses calculations.
Correct. And actually, I'm going to bring up another document here. So this is the document of the general fund forecast that the executive board received at the previous meeting. As Bob mentioned a little bit while ago, we obviously have a couple bienniums in the next 5-year forecast. So those are earmarked in these red boxes of this is one biennium, 24-25 is the biennium, and then 26-27. So these are a little bit of those expectations of revenues. You can see the $22 million for the local option levy, state school fund, property taxes, those kinds of things. Our main expenditures, obviously, we are in the people business. And so a majority of our budget, roughly 85 to 87%, is personnel. So obviously that's shown here in salaries and benefits, materials and services, and all the other main categories. And then our fund balance in that 5% reserve policy is made up of a 2% contingency and a 3% unappropriated. So a couple of those assumptions to go into. The state school funds of 4.3% in the future years, property taxes 3 to 3.5%, the local option levy at $22 million. Most of the expenses, so we have our licensed union agreement that is from 2021 through 2024. The classified union, which was just agreed upon, goes through 2025. Our MAPS group is through 2021. They have just a memorandum of understanding for a COLA increase. And then our substitutes, the East Agreement, is through 2025. PERS rates are obviously a big portion of our personnel expenses. So as those increase, so every 2 years, we take an effect of those. Typically, we see a pretty natural transition of a lot of our more senior employees retiring. And so those are the higher paid PERS employees, and hiring new employees. So them taking up a lower contribution rate in our PERS. So over time, it kind of fluctuates a little bit, but it's not usually a huge change when we see increases over our PERS. We also, part of the reserves that we have in our general fund is to help pay down and subsidize those PERS rate increases that we use. So if we were to see a large increase or something become due, we have enough in our fund balance to fluctuate and work through that. Basically, our materials and services are just a general 2% growth over time. That's based on the kind of the increase that we've seen over the last few years. And typically, it really depends on the organization and their spending habits of how that percentage increases can change. I've seen districts and organizations where materials and services really remain flat. I've seen organizations where, depending on something really big comes up, and it increases 3 or 4%. But in general, over the length of a long-term outlook, I usually look about 2 to 3% for those increases and assumptions. One of the main things coming up in the next probably year or so, and within this budget year, are going to be the internal transfers that originally came from the general fund. So the general fund did a number of transfers to other funds for things like student technologies, curriculum, and equipment replacement. A lot of these things were actually taken place of and used ESSER funds to pay for over these last couple of years. So the general fund didn't have to contribute those transfers. You also have the COVID years that came in where transfers were taken off the table to help kind of save money for the district. So these transfers have not been put into this current year's budget, and it's up for discussion and your direction as the board if you want those transfers to be put in. Obviously, those transfers have a number of impacts to our operations and equipment and how we fund things. So it's really a good time to have a discussion about those transfers if you want to see those moving into the future. One of the biggest transfers that I see in the future is our nutritional services. So we have obviously our free food and food program that has been subsidized from federal funds. When those funds go away, does the district want to continue the free food program? To continue that program this last year, the district had to do a transfer from the general fund of almost $1 million into nutrition services to make that fund whole, because that fund specifically has to operate like a business. So they can't have more expenses than they do revenue. So the general fund subsidizes that with an internal transfer to kind of make everything whole. So that will be a big discussion for the future and direction of the board as to how you want to move forward with that. And a couple of the unknown things in the future, obviously salary and benefits for all of the groups and unions, the local option renewal, and then we do anticipate some additional departments being created just from some operational needs that include communications, risk management, and those types of things. I see Josh had his hand raised first.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. I just want to say one thing about nutrition services, and for those who've been on this committee with me for a number of years, you know, I've been pushing this for many years, and we got it last year. And I think I don't know what and obviously at the end of the day, it's a board decision. I get that, not a budget committee decision, but I would just like to encourage my colleagues as we go through the budget committee this season, over the next few months, we could think about this and how important it is. Kids can't learn if they're hungry. And I think this is a huge issue. I think it's a huge equity issue. And I think it's just sort of common sense. I know nationally there are some cities which are much bigger than us that can do this. I don't know, I haven't not done the research, but I would bet we're one of the smallest districts in the country that has done this. And I would hope that if we learn anything from the pandemic, there's that things can be done and happen. This is one thing we don't lose. But that's just a comment really to set the tone for a conversation I know we'll be having over the next few months. Thanks, everybody.
Laurel.
Yes, I would like some information in anticipation in I can't talk, anticipation of this discussion. While yes, it's an equity issue, and yes, we need kids can't learn if they're hungry. We are feeding every student, even per se the rich ones. So I think there's a place there to look at, maybe change, not strictly follow the numbers that come from the, is it the FDA guidelines or somebody, the free and reduced lunch program, but I would love to have a discussion where we widen those guidelines, but I don't think we need to keep it as wide as we have it, which is inclusive of everyone. That's when it gets past equity and it's been unneeded benefit for some people. So that, because there's been times when it would have been helpful for me to have this, but I made just like $4 too much. And so I think those guidelines are actually not quite appropriate, but in that discussion, let's be aware. Thank you.
Thank you. I will make sure to work with our nutrition services and try to gather some information for you to have before the meetings so that you can have some more information. Dakota.
I have to agree with Josh. If there's anything we did right last year, it was keeping the universal free school meal program going. This is something that is very important to me. I'm passionate about it. Poverty is a big issue in Oregon. 1 in 4 children in the state of Oregon face food insecurity. We have states like California who know that something like this is a priority and have made it a statewide law. I am in favor of. I believe we should be keeping this program going for the coming years.
Thank you. Erica.
I just want to chime in as well. I agree with Josh and I agree with Dakota. I think one of the most important things that we did was being able to get free meals for these students. And just like Josh said, students cannot learn if they are hungry. And there is more poverty in this town than people are aware of. And sometimes people on paper may look like they should be able to afford the meals, but they cannot for reasons that don't show up on the paper, like medical bills, like legal issues. So no, it is one of the best things that we've done, and I continue to be in support of that. So thanks to Josh and Dakota for your words.
Thank you. Judy.
Thank you. I just want to say again, and I didn't know, I mentioned earlier that I think it's really important for us to have a really common understanding of our major goals and values as a district. And because I think as I would like to go on record, I'd like to do everything. And I completely agree that I'm really glad we did the universal food program. So I'm not arguing that we shouldn't, but if we have to make choices, I think we need to get some grounding in some goals and priorities that we share and are focusing on. So I didn't again see that in the schedule of our meetings, but it would be important probably to add that. And it's this kind of conversation that it's going to be that much more important for. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Dakota, did you have something else?
I wanted to add, Matt, would you be able to get us the number of students in our district that are below the poverty line? So we have an idea of what percentage of our students are under the poverty line?
I will definitely strive to get that information and work with our staff here to get that.
I just think this would be crucial knowledge for us as a district.
I'll make a note of that. Okay. So that is the end of the presentation, and just wanted to open it up to any other questions or comments or anything from the group that myself or Bob Blythe or Andy Dye or Kalina Beard can answer on, as far as staff is concerned, to help in any direction that we can. Gary.
I guess part of the forecasting discussion, when you're going to be presenting on the forecasting a little bit more in depth, I would love to see like not only the funding situation for the forecasting a little bit more detailed, but also thinking about the staffing and the programming, like what's going to happen next year and the following year as far as potentially needing to level down staffing or programming to right size the budget as we're looking at the forecast. So just thinking about any information that you guys are able to provide in that projection, in addition to just the forecasting for the funds, like what does that mean for us to be able to provide services for students? I think would be good information for us to know in advance rather than just knowing next year when we're having to make tough decisions, more so than this year.
Absolutely. And I know we will definitely be updating that financial forecast once we get the budget requests back from our department managers and department directors. So we will update that forecast to give you an updated look of where that is. I see Dr. Dye has his hand raised.
Michelle, yours was up. Did you mean to take your hand down or? Because you were ahead of me.
Yeah, I think I was just asking for things that we'll be discussing in the future. We did receive some numbers in the last meeting on students experiencing poverty, but I don't know how those numbers match up with the district overall, because there are a lot of other issues that intersect. Homelessness, foster care, mobility. So I'm not entirely sure how those numbers are calculated.
I could definitely try and help provide some more information to you. And we can give you as much information as I can gather.
That's a more elusive poverty level, and the number of students for whom universal free lunch would benefit is really tough, because as students get older, they're less and less inclined to go through the process. The poverty line is pretty strident and pretty low. And like Laurel said, if you're $10 a month above it, that doesn't mean that you're not impoverished, and that level of support would not matter. So I think finding the sweet spot will be really important. And when we start talking about things like right sizing staffing and leveling off, that could send a shockwave through an organization like a school district, and that's not at all my intent. We need to make sound decisions. like many other districts in the state, we are at a higher level of staffing than we were pre-COVID, and that's by design. We received money to put more adults in buildings, so we've spent that money to put more adults in buildings. Ongoing costs with short-term funding means that those things need to be reconciled. And while I would say we're at a better adult to student ratio than we have been in about the last 20 years, that's a really misleading metric as well, because adults don't necessarily translate to classroom teachers, thus reducing class size directly. So more information will come that we believe will be actually helpful, and not slogans that would be seen as either hiding information or appeasing people. We will have some decisions to be made, because there are positions that we funded that were not intended to be long-term ongoing positions. So just more information to come. Wanted to be forthright in saying that.
Judy.
I just want to suggest that anyone on this committee, or I'm going to suggest to you, Matt, you may know this, but Lane County does an ALICE report, assets limited, income constrained, and they do it for the area, and they look, and it's a much more accurate picture of how people are struggling to the points that have been made. So it looks at rents, it looks at childcare, it looks at all those things, and income. And I mean, it makes the points that everyone is making, that people are really struggling, even though on paper their incomes don't come close to the poverty level. And that's that we have some history of that report. I think Lane County's bought into doing that. So I would recommend that resource. I believe it's online. Happy to help you find it if you can.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If there's no other comments, I'll hand it back to Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I guess my last one thing while we have you, and thank you very much for your time this evening and for sharing with us, is just thinking about the next meeting, if we're not meeting till March, as soon as possible, getting the information that you're going to be presenting at that meeting out to us. So that way we have time to consume it and come up with some questions and thoughtful items to be able to talk to you with at that meeting. That would definitely be appreciated. Thank you. Lower my hand. All right, going back through the agenda. So we have next on item 5, budget committee wrap up. So we have items raised by committee members, and this is more of a discussion topic. Does any committee member have items that they'd like to discuss at this time? I see Laurel. Go ahead, Laurel.
Thank you. So along the lines of thinking about things that are coming up, some things that I've been really, I mean, the reason I came on to the school board was our special education. And when we look at our funding, really revamping, changing exponentially what is happening to our kids in special education. I heard this week that, and I don't know this is true, I haven't verified it with Andy, but that there are still isolation rooms being used. Somebody told me that restraints sometimes are used. I'm saying I haven't verified this, as parents that are saying these things. I still fear that we still have the same attitude. I know Andy and staff are working on changing this, but this is 20 plus years of we're going to do it the way we do it. And if you figure it out, parents, then I guess we'll have to do something. But really, it's the kids being blamed, not us. And we need to be stepping up and saying, hey, we see something happening and this is how we want to help. Not that your kid's a problem and this is how we want to help, which is I have seen a lot of. So I just want to bring that to you because that's an expensive endeavor for the district to make these changes, but they're so necessary because, and this is not something I have researched a lot, but I do believe we're in a time where people, haven't been forced to be on computers a lot like we are now, and having to do almost all your paperwork. I just started a business. Can I tell you how many times I've been so absolutely frustrated? I wanted to throw my computer because there's nobody to talk to when things go wrong. So we're all in this kind of space where things have not been going right for a while, or maybe they're mostly going right, but there's a lot more ups and downs. And then you have parents at home with kids and with a lot more ups and downs, and also having to do a full-time job. I think there's been a lot of abuse that could have been happening in those spaces that we're not aware of, but we are seeing in school districts a lot more behavior. So I'm just saying we have a chance to do something in the 7 hours we usually have a kid to make for a safe space. And when we have our neurodivergent kids and our kids in special education, who I will tell you, a lot of parents do not feel their kids are in a safe space when they come to our schools. I want that to change so badly. It has to change. That's one of the main reasons I'm here. So I just wanted to put that out for people to know that's something I'll be pushing for. That and CTE. Love it, all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. Yeah, Eric, yes, please.
Right. No, look, thank you for that overview. I know I'm very new, and a lot of times I like to think about a bigger picture and the big picture. And I'm just wondering at what point, and maybe this is more Andy question, but at what point do we look at the innovative avenues for collaborative efforts around such as the behavioral health peer-led movement that is going on in behavioral health? And really there's an acknowledgement of needing to support that workforce, create more of that workforce. Those are our parents. Those are our children's who are having an issue, and those are the parents that peer-led organizations such as the one I work for. And I'm just wondering, as we go forward, looking at innovative relationships with space, with organizations doing the work that we need to have our children had, and how we can do this, looking at budget as how do we collaboratively tackle issues that we're both working on and save money doing it because we're being more collaborative. And I know there's a lot of rule and sharing of information that are in the way, but this is a serious issue. And as you see the revenue going up, the amount of people we're serving are going down, but the needs are very more precise. And so I think that really this alignment of budgets at departmental level, at the state level, really is where we should be looking in future forecasts, is how can we create different lines of revenue through alignment.
Thank you, Eric, and welcome to our group. It's good to see you. Anybody else would like to make any additional comments? Yeah, Andy, please.
Didn't mean to be so last minute there, Gary. Sorry.
Good. I've been in the classroom. I know about wait time. So.
Love to talk more about that, Eric, and anybody else that's interested. I think that is what you described in terms of having partnerships where organizations that have a slightly different but aligned mission to ours, working together so that those organizations can do what they do best, and we don't try to replicate a skill set that we don't have staff for. That's our key to success moving forward. And we look at investment funds like High School Success and the Student Investment Act, and trying to seed some of these ideas with those investment dollars so we know what works and what needs to roll to the general fund, and what sounded like a great idea but didn't really yield what we thought it would. So we try something new. But excited to talk to anybody that thinks that we're missing out on a partnership that would benefit the community.
Thank you, Andy. And I've worked with High Desert ESD in their Better Together network, similar as the All Hands Raised up in Portland with the collective impact work. So definitely think there's lots of lessons to be learned from other groups as we're trying to support our students better. Yeah, Michelle, please.
Right now, 2 of the high schools have school-based health centers, and there are behavioral specialists through the county who are serving students. And so at Churchill and at North Eugene High School, students can access those resources. It would be great if those resources were available at all the high schools, including the charter schools and the alternative schools, and even the online schools. At our previous board meeting, one of the board reps from Eugene Online Academy spoke to the stress of school. And as far as I know, I don't know, I don't know as far as I know. I don't know that she has access to resources if she is distressed. So it's something that we need to look at and consider.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other comments or issues that the folks would like to raise? I'll take a moment real quick to just thank you for everybody's patience as I was trying to get my camera going. I had to restart my camera or restart my computer and jump on and off the meeting while Matt was talking. I was able to hear him the whole time, but I appreciate everybody's patience as I was getting that ironed out. And thank you for all the returning members, and thank you for the new members this year. Definitely appreciate you being here. As far as something that Judy had mentioned, I definitely encourage everybody to take a look at the work that the board has done as far as aligning mission and goals, and thinking about how we can look at what their goals are and align with them as we're looking to the budget. If somebody from the board would be able to share out a little bit about how you would encourage budget committee members to absorb and get that information for us to be more in line with what you guys have been doing, I appreciate that. Yeah, Laurel?
I would just let you know, we don't have any board goals yet. So, I mean, and also if you're on the budget committee, I just want to put the part in that what you are interested in, why you came to be here, is valid and important. And we want to hear that. I mean, we talk as a school board, but really the whole reason, and I know in the past it has been that it's been kind of a rubber stamp committee, but I want to encourage everybody to be here and talk about the reasons why you chose to be here, because I think more voice is important for our district. Knowing what you as a parent, or you as somebody who's gone to our schools, or you as maybe you have nieces and nephews, it doesn't matter. If you're dealing with this kind of stuff and you're worried about something, your voice is important here. We're going to have our goals, but I think, Judy, please stop me if I'm wrong. She was saying our goals as us, the budget committee, and what we want to focus on all together. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Judy, you want to speak to that real quick, and then we can go over to Erica?
Great. Yeah, I was actually talking not just about specifically the board's goals. We have district goals, which should include a broader sense. And so I'm happy to connect with board leadership and with the superintendent and talk about what would be the best thing to bring forward to this group. And as Laurel said, your thoughts and input are also important.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you, Laurel, for clarifying that. Erica?
I just wanted to make kind of a global statement. I am the mom of 2 autistic children, and one of the things that's important to me, and part of why I'm here, is to try to speak out for neurodivergent students and disabled students, and just making sure that we're doing what we can to support these kids. There are lots of neurodivergent students that are not SPED students, but they're students on 504 plans, and making sure that we are really looking to these students and supporting them, but also doing so in such a way that we're not using behaviorist models or ABA or things like that. So I'm always wanting to know, what are we doing to support the 504 plans and to support accommodating students, and where is the money being spent with SPED funds. So anyway, so just wanted to say that's, for all the folks gathering the information, that's kind of something I'm going to always be
sort of harping on, metaphorically speaking. So thank you.
And I just got to speak up one more time because you keep on this idea about our families, and the organization I'm working with definitely has many families who have neurodivergent children and who are dealing with that burden, and look to public entities such as school districts to be that safety net. And I think the pandemic showed us how important public entities such as public schools are as a safety net, let alone propelling our students to be rocket scientists, which we want them to be, and MDs and everything else, judges, the things we need in society. But at the same time, really understanding our role in the 21st century as a place of safety, as many young parents are not prepared for many reasons. And so I just think that when we go forward looking at those forecasts and what is our role percentagely as a percentage in the nurturing field of just making sure our people are balanced and healthy before, as a prerequisite. And then the other piece is these parents, many of them are having that burden, are also employment or burdened with their employment. So this idea of how can we empower our parents by using our needs to empower them to come into our campuses, help them to gain skills, help them to empower themselves, be around their children, use the space we have, help us do the needs we have while we train them and they clean up or whatever they are, straighten up their time, get some scheduling in their lives, all these things. So I think really being creative as we go forward and looking for as those creative solutions can save us money, if not make us money as well.
Thanks, Eric. And then Matt, you had unmuted yourself. Did you want to make a comment?
Oh, nope, I'm sorry.
No worries. Just trying to stay on top of things. If it's okay with folks, I think moving on to the next item, which was looking at the agenda items. If we have some already from Matt that he populated in his slide deck, and through conversation, we've added the item of looking at the calendar again for additional days and times that we need to potentially add additional meeting as an additional topic. Another one that I know that we need to take care of is just as housekeeping, is looking at the minutes from our May meeting from last May. We need to get those minutes and review those for approval, as well as the minutes that we'll have from this meeting as well. Are there other topics that folks would like to add to the agenda for March 20th meeting? Yeah, Judy.
Well, I'd like to say we could bring, after the conversation that we talked about with what we have for vision, values, the priorities for the district.
Great, thank you. All right, and we don't necessarily need to add anything more because we do have quite a full agenda already. If anybody else has anything that they think next meeting would be the appropriate time to cover. Going once, going twice. All right, I think that probably will do it for the agenda for next meeting. Thank you for everybody's attention going through today and for the conversation afterwards and for your contributions. Hey, Josh, I'm gonna tag you in here. For meeting adjournment, do we need a motion or is it more informal than that?
I think not. At least I didn't last I remember, so I hope we didn't need one. Judy, I'm looking at you. Or staff, anyone? I think we don't. I think that if no one else has anything to say, Gary, I think you can adjourn the meeting at the time.
We never had, Gary. You could institute it if you wanted.
Robert's rules is that if we're at the end of the agenda, that's a natural end to the meeting, and then you can gavel us out
Awesome, that sounds great.
after asking if anybody has anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that guidance. Appreciate that. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add to the end of the meeting here? Okay. Again, I appreciate everybody's attention this evening and looking forward to working with you guys going forward in this budget cycle. So thank you very much, and we'll call that meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
All right, evening.
See you soon.